Hello, hello. We got another podcast, another fishing podcast coming at you, and it is January 8th, and it's finally starting to feel like winter. But I tell you, there has been so many people going through the ice or being trapped out on the ice. We're going to be talking about it today. Hopefully, things are going to start freezing up here in the Northland finally. I got to talk to you about I got a new dog. His name's Scratch. Wait till you see him. I think you're going to love him. There's a great ice fishing tip I'm going to share with you, and this lure company that you've got to follow on Instagram. All that and more coming right up.
This isn't another fishing podcast. This is another fishing podcast.
All right, well, yeah, it's been a pretty exciting past few days. I had my in-laws up at the house here, so I've kind of been scrambling to get a bunch of research done for this podcast just to be able to get it up today. It's likely going to be a little bit late. You're probably hearing this a little bit later than normal. I don't know. I want to try to aim for 5 p.m. for these, but I think realistically, in order for me to actually do the podcast on the day that I'm actually putting the podcast up, it might just have to be a little bit pushed back, the time that you actually watch these or listen to them. At 5 o'clock sounds good, but I'm thinking more along the lines of maybe 7 is more realistic. But we'll see how this goes, and we'll just kind of play it by ear. But biggest thing is Mondays, another fishing podcast are made for Mondays. So first, today I want to talk about my dog Scratch. I got a new dog. I've talked about the passing of my beloved Cinnamon, little miniature dachshund, just a fantastic little dog, and that happened this fall. Very, very tough, but I give you Scratch. So here is Scratch. I call him a little Mexican coyote. I think he's wild. But he is actually what we believe a Chihuahua and a rat terrier mix. He's got a lot of personality. He is really bonded to me, which is great. I think he'll be a great fishing dog. I really love those ears. He's quite the dude. Loves walks. I can tell. I take him out just to go, potty. And he's all about just keeping on walking down the street. He wants to just keep going. So he is a fantastic dog, and I'm looking forward to many adventures with Scratch. So it's a new chapter in my dog life, Scratch. So my wife and I are very excited to have him in our life. He seems to be working out really well right now. So fingers crossed that continues to happen. He's very lovable. And so far, so good. He's only pottied a few times in the house. Hopefully, that's not going to be a consistent thing, but you never know. This is he's a rescue dog. All our dogs, we have a little miniature dachshund named Sherman, who's also a rescue. But got 2 dogs and 2 cats now, and I think I'm seeing a lot of great memories being made with Scratch. So thought I'd share that with you guys. You're going to see him in videos here coming up. He is going to be, I think, featured prominently on a lot of angling uploaded future videos. So thought I'd share that with you. Also, we have been having some, let me crack open this beer here. It's an Indeed Pistachio Cream Ale, by the way. If you've never had one of these, they are so good. I cannot emphasize that enough, how fantastic this beer is. I'm just going to take a sip right now. Indeed Brewing Company Pistachio Cream Ale. This is a Minnesota beer, Indeed. But it's such a great beer. Anytime I see it on tap, I'm getting it. This is a 6-pack I ordered just recently. Great beer. Okay, so been having a hard time figuring out what I'm going to be doing as far as fishing right now. I'm a little bit in limbo because the ice fishing conditions outside haven't really been very great. And that's putting it mildly. So This week, I actually do not have any fishing videos lined up. I have not been able to get out on the ice. The ice is really kind of non-existent, safe ice anyway, in my neck of the woods here in Minnesota. I would even say throughout the state, especially on bigger bodies of water, even if you're up north, it's been really shady. And we're going to talk a lot about that in this podcast today. I got a lot of stuff, a lot of news as far as just crazy, terribly bad ice fishing conditions and a bunch of people getting stranded and falling in. Bad stuff. So you got to be really safe out there. I'm just going to wait. We've got some colder weather, it looks like, coming in now. The long-range forecast finally looks like cold weather coming in and will freeze up the rest of the lakes here that have opened up. I'm not going to go ice fishing unless it's safe. What I'm going to do this week is I am going to do videos in my tank. I have a 90-gallon tank right over there, and it's really kind of in rough shape right now, though. I'll tell you this. I'll show you this disgusting tank. That's like mostly calcium. Okay, if you're just listening to the audio podcast here, I am showing my 90-gallon tank that through evaporation has become a lot less full of water. And the water isn't clear. The water that's in there isn't clear. And then the sides have just this buildup. It's like some kind of like calcium buildup it's not gonna be fun to clean this thing, but I've got a ton of experience cleaning tanks. I used to be a big time aquarium kid when I was growing up, and I've cleaned many a tank. So I'm gonna clean this tank up, and instead of doing a fishing video this week, I'm going to basically test out lures that I think, you're really going to want to see. And I just realized that you're going to have to wait, because I was going to actually show you some of these lures. I went to a local Runnings sports equipment, what is that? Sporting goods, thank you. Sporting goods store, and I bought some ice fishing lures, some vertical fishing lures, lures that you'd fish vertically for ice fishing. You could fish them in a boat vertically too if you'd like, but there are a number of like Acme Fishing Tackle is making a number of really, really cool ice fishing lures, vertical jigging lures now. So I bought some of those, and they're really, really unique. There's one of them, I believe it's called the Hyperglide. It's got like wings. It's very much like a vertical jigging. What is the Rapala, like a jigging wrap? Okay, very much like a Rapala jigging wrap. But the difference is that it's got these gliding wings that when you drop it, those wings come out, and it kind of makes it presumably work differently than your typical, Rapala jigging style, jigging wrap style of bait. So it's a completely different presentation in that regard. Well, hopefully it is. I'm excited to test it out in that tank, get that tank cleaned out, and see what that Hyperglide looks like, that Acme Hyperglide. Also bought a spoon. I believe I bought a spoon. One of their spoons, I think it was Acme. There's something weird about a spoon. And there's also this little jig that I bought from them that has like little wings on it that I think will help it glide. It's just, you could put a little plastic on there, or a little Euro larva on there, and it's just going to make that bait glide more. So I'm thinking, I wish I would have just remembered before I started this podcast to bring that bag and just like go through these lures so I could give you specifically the name, but you're just going to have to watch the video. I'm going to try to get 2 videos up. I'm going to clean this tank tonight or tomorrow morning, and then shoot these videos tomorrow if I can, because I'm actually leaving for a shoot on Wednesday. I'm going to be shooting for Major League Fishing. their college championship, which I believe is in Florida. So I'm leaving Wednesday for that, shooting Thursday, and then I'll come back Friday, and we'll be off to the races again with making content for Angling Uploaded and preparing for the next Another Fishing podcast. So that's the plan there. Let's see. Yeah, so let's get into some of the exciting news. Turning my notes here. Fishing news. Here we go. And I always want to say this before I start the fishing news portion of the Another Fishing podcast, is that I get a lot of help from Target Walleye and Bass Blaster. Target Walleye and Bass Blaster are email newsletters. Really recommend. You can also, they have websites, so check out Target Walleye. Just Google Target Walleye or Bass Blaster, and you'll find their website. So great information. I rely on them heavily to kind of keep me up to date with what's going on in the fishing world, and then I pass along to you guys. So starting off, so if you've never ice fished before, ice fishing is it's culturally, it's really very, very interesting. Just culturally, the culture around ice fishing. And here in Minnesota, ice fishing, the culture of ice fishing, a lot of it is going to a really great fishery like Upper Red Lake or Lake of the Woods, and going to the taverns up there, the resorts up there, and it's always just a great experience. That's a lot of what ice fishing is just going places, going to a great destination, the whole resort experience, staying in a cabin, having beers with your buddy before you go out, the next morning, ice fishing and having a great time. Lake of the Woods in particular, I would say is the most, if you're really wanting to just have a consistent, like you're going to go out on the ice, Lake of the Woods, you're going to catch fish. You can't say that with everywhere else, but I've found that to be the case for Lake of the Woods, my personal experience. Problem is that there's been this has been a terrible year just for good ice. And so the ice fishing season is really being pushed back. A lot of the lakes around here opened up. I'm more like southern Minnesota, central southern Minnesota is more where I'm at. But even up north, really terrible ice conditions. And here is an example. So there's a lot of resorts, great resorts up at Lake of the Woods. And there's unfortunately a gentleman drowned up at Lake of the Woods recently in what is known as they call them bombardiers, or bombers is what they're kind of known as. I've been up to Lake of the Woods before and been in one of these. It's my understanding that these vehicles, we'll get into this more here in a second, these vehicles that they were using, that this man, unfortunately, he drowned in, it's something from the 40s. I think these things, these bombers, they're kind of like they're a tracked vehicle. They kind of look like a tank, but a lot lighter than a tank, but they kind of look like a tank with skis on them. And I've been in one of these things, and I remember being in one of these things thinking, man, I hope to God this thing doesn't go through the ice. So let's start this story. Wisconsin man, this is from the Star Tribune. Wisconsin man 78 drowns in Lake of the Woods accident. A Prairie du Sac man, I'm not sure where that is, was identified as a passenger in the commercial tracked vehicle that broke through the ice Thursday. And this story came out December 29th of last year. So, all right, so this is what a bomber looks like, a bombardier or bombardier. I'm not really sure how you pronounce these things, but that's what it looks like. It's a very old vehicle. These things are old. They're like from the 30s, 40s. I think they're from the 40s, if I'm not mistaken. But you can see it's got tracks like a tank, but the forward part of the vehicle has skis. And what's crazy, when I've been in one of these, the only way to get out is through the roof. There's a hatch that you basically, if I'm remembering correctly, you would open the hatch through the roof, and that's how you get out. So it's this story really creeps me out because I've thought about what it would be like in one of these if it was to go through the ice, and one did. So on Friday, law enforcement identified the man killed when a commercial transport vehicle broke through the ice in the northwest angle near Flag Island on Lake of the Woods. John H. Fry, 78, of Prairie du Sac, Wisconsin, drowned when a tracked vehicle known commonly as a bombardier or bomber carrying him, 6 other passengers, and a driver went through the ice at about 8 a.m. Thursday. So they're taking him out to his first spot out there. The bomber was en route to a fishing location when it crashed through about 12 inches of ice and began to sink in about 10 feet of water. The Lake of the Woods County Sheriff's Office said in a news release Friday that the driver, along with a nearby party, began getting passengers out of the vehicle until the cold water prohibited their continued efforts. Just terrible, terrible stuff. 7 of the 8 people on board were able to escape. A Cass County dive team recovered Fry's body from the vehicle Thursday afternoon. So he was stuck in the vehicle. Bombers are used to haul customers to and from fish houses away from shore. An investigation of the accident is continuing, the sheriff's office said. Fry's drowning is the second ice-related death this winter in Minnesota. An Osage man, 67, died after breaking through the ice with his ATV on Big Toad Lake, east of Detroit Lakes. Authorities found his body December 23rd. Yeah, this is like my worst, definitely my worst, kind of, not my worst. I mean, there's a lot of nightmarish scenarios, I guess, but that is up there with my worst fears while ice fishing. And again, I've been in one of these tracked vehicles, these bombardiers, and it's now I don't know about this particular instance, but when I was in one, and it's crammed in there. You're packed in there. There's what was it? There are 8 other people and the driver, I guess. Is that right? And you're in the back, and it's, tight. It's cramped. And if I'm remembering this correctly, the roof was the escape hatch. And I just remember very vividly thinking, wow, what a terrible thing if one of these went through. And that just happened recently. The conditions are so terrible. We've had not very warm weather. We've had not very cold weather. We've had warm weather, and then we've also had a lot of rain here recently. So it's eroding the ice, and even with 12 inches of ice, that thing went through. So that ice was not holding together well, obviously. So terrible, terrible stuff there. And just, this is not, we're going to have to get through some kind of bad ice fishing conditions, stories before we get to better news here. But this is crazy. So on same deal, Lake of the Woods, approximately 50 anglers rescued Monday on Lake of the Woods. Strong south winds caused wide pressure ridge to open near Long Point. So, Lake of the Woods is a very big lake, and it's just not cold enough. It's just, and it's open. These big lakes, if you don't have colder enough weather, and you get wind, and they just can be very, very difficult to get to freeze. So this happened, just happened recently. Williams, Minnesota, Kurt Quesnell, and I want to get who this is from. This is from the Bemidji Pioneer. This is up north. That's a more up north newspaper. And Williams, Minnesota, Kurt Quesnell was fishing east of Long Point on the south shore of Lake of the Woods on Monday afternoon, January 1st, when he got a message with a short video from a buddy that a large crack had opened up less than a mile off Long Point and several anglers were stranded on the north side of the crack. While Quesnel wasn't far from the crack, he was on the shoreline side of the fissure, set up over about 25 feet of water. It wasn't where he wanted to be fishing, Quesnel said, but the crack that opened up at about 3 p.m. Monday, driven by strong south winds, had prevented him from fishing where he wanted to fish pretty much all winter. I put the phone down and then I got another message saying that a crack opened up and people are stranded on the other side, said Quesnel, who lives near Long Point and fishes the big lake nearly every day, posting regular updates on his popular NCOR Outdoors YouTube channel, NCOR Outdoors YouTube channel. In a news release issued late Tuesday afternoon, the Lake of the Woods County Sheriff's Office said it was notified shortly before 2:30 p.m. Monday that a male had gone through the ice with his ATV about a mile off Long Point, but was able to get out with no injuries. Shortly before 3 p.m., the sheriff's office received a report that 20 to 25 people were stranded on the north side of the crack in the ice. At that time, Long Point Resort was using a 16-foot boat to shuttle people across the open water to the shoreline side of the crack, where they were taken ashore by snowmobile or light utility vehicle, the sheriff's office said. Personnel from the Lake of the Woods County Sheriff's Office, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, Baudette Fire and Rescue, and Lake of the Woods Ambulance responded, the news release said. Sheriff's Office and DNR rescuers then used airboats and UTVs to assist in returning the stranded anglers, about 50 in all, to shore. 50 guys stranded out there. It's pretty crazy. You know, you hear about these ice rescues all the time, but it was actually a pretty relaxed deal, Quesnel said of Monday's rescue effort. The crack, also known as a pressure ridge in the ice fishing lexicon, should seal back up as soon as the wind switches to the north, Quesnel predicted. Based on photos of the rescue circulating on social media, Quesnel said he estimates the crack was about 100 feet wide in the area where the boats were crossing. Pressure ridges aren't unusual, especially on large bodies of water such as Lake of the Woods, as ice sheets are constantly moving. It's best to avoid pressure ridges where they occur, however. Quesnel, who's also a fishing guide, said he has canceled all of his winter guide trips so far because he hasn't been able to fish safely to the area he wants to fish. Satellite imagery on Monday showed a crack extending all the way from the west side of Lake of the Woods near Springsteel, north of War Road at northeast past Long Point, nearly to the Ontario border several miles north of Lighthouse Gap. Another large crack could be seen in Buffalo Bay and Manitoba waters and from Stony Point at the southern tip of the northwest angle and east past Garden Island to the Ontario border. So this is a picture of the satellite image, and you can see really pronounced the left side of this picture here, a crack that's developed and going all the way to the east side of the lake. It's going that point, you see the point on the south end, it's a point they're referring to in that article. That point is going just right out from that, or that crack, that pressure ridge is going right, spanning right in front of that point. And that's going to take some mighty cold weather, I would say, to freeze up that pressure ridge. That's going to take a while. The ice in the area where he was fishing within, which is within a couple hundred yards of the crack off Long Point, was about 12 inches thick, Quesnel said. We haven't gained any ice for 3 weeks, he said, and the ice is actually starting to get a little chunky when you drill it out. It's not all powdery like ice should be when you're grinding it out of the hole. It's not real good. It just has to get cold, that's all. Monday's rescue is the latest in a string of ice-related incidents that have occurred in recent days, the result of unseasonably warm temperatures and late December rain that further deteriorated ice conditions. On Friday, December 29th, emergency crews used boats and airboats, rescued 102 anglers. We talked about this, I believe, the last podcast. Rescued 122 anglers from an ice floe on the southeast side of Upper Red Lake in Beltrami County, after the ice detached from the main shoreline. The rescue, one of several so far this winter on Upper Red, prompted the Beltrami County Sheriff's Office to issue a bulletin later prompted the Beltrami County Sheriff's Office to issue a bulletin later that evening prohibiting motorized vehicles from going on the ice until further notice. Thursday morning, December 28th, a 78-year-old Wisconsin man, this is what the story we just did, a 78-year-old Wisconsin man drowned when the bombardier tracked vehicle in which he was riding broke through about 12 inches of ice near Flag Island on Lake of the Woods northwest angle while en route to a fishing spot. The driver and 6 other passengers were able to escape the vehicle. So yeah, this is a crazy, crazy, crazy ice fishing season. I would say it's more dangerous than it's been in a long time. So very, very important, very, very important to just be safe. And here's another reason here to be safe. This is actually from Valley News Live, which is based out of Fargo, North Dakota. And a 22-year-old was able to make a rescue. Here's the news report.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Justin Betty. This is the type of picture we have seen over and over and over again this winter. Our mild temperatures leading to cracks on local lakes, things either falling through or people needing to be rescued. Now, usually those people are still above water. But one Minnesota man wasn't as lucky. His ATV and fish house went through the ice on Middle Cormorant Lake just before Christmas. He was saved thanks to the efforts of another fisherman who just happened to be nearby. Valley News team Zoe Jones introduces us to the 22-year-old from Detroit Lakes to talk about his heroic actions that day.
Oh crap was going through my mind.
Those were the only thoughts going through Ethan Withoff's mind as he realized an elderly man was facing a life or death situation on Middle Cormorant Lake the Friday before Christmas. Ethan had just finished up for the day when the man stopped to talk to him, just moments before disaster.
And then he went on his way. I started packing up and then ended up hearing the four-wheeler go pretty quiet. And I was like, that was weird. So and then I heard the yelling, so I grabbed my chisel and my ice picks, ran out there. And
he ran to the middle of the lake where he found the 80-year-old man. His ATV and fish house had broken through the ice.
Well, he was sitting there floating onto his fish house. So he was able to kick over to the edge of the ice.
Ethan then brought the man to shore and back to safety. He hasn't had much contact with the man since, but Ethan said he's glad he was there that day.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think about, but I'm happy I was able to help him, to be honest. I'm happy I was there and just didn't leave like 20 minutes earlier or something.
Since that incident, Ethan still goes fishing, but it's changed his perspective when he's out on the lake.
I have been fishing a couple times the last couple weekends, but it just makes me, pay attention more, really, with that type of stuff.
After dealing hands-on with a situation like this, Ethan urges everyone to be safe and prepared for anything.
For sure have ice picks. Ice picks are really nice. They clip together right here, right around your neck. If you're underwater, all you got to do is like this, quick, and able to pull yourself up. Stay informed with your weather and, ice conditions at the same time, and just be safe.
Zoe Jones, Valley News Live.
Ethan says he hasn't spoken with the man since, but family and friends tell him he's doing well.
All right. Well, yeah. So another example there of just really sketchy ice conditions. I mean, I've never heard of this many situations where people are falling through, needing to be rescued, people drowning. This has been a really, really, unfortunately, active, tragically active, ice disaster season. I don't know any other way to say it better than that, but yeah, it's not good. And then also when you have these, ice fishing's a really big deal up north, particularly in Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Dakotas. But it's gotten just really popular in the last, decade. I mean, ice fishing's gotten super popular. The resorts get really, really busy in the winter, and it's ice fishing is the lifeblood for a lot of these resorts up here. And so this has been one of those years where it's really taken a bite out of what these resorts are making, what they're able to bring in during the winter, because this is such an odd year. Just the fact that you still, there's bodies of water near me that I'm just blown away that are open. It's just so late, it's just wild. So financially there are resorts really hurting, and maybe Upper Red Lake might be the best example of that right now, because you can't even. Well, let's just watch this news story. This is from, let me make sure I got this right, WDAY TV in Fargo. I believe these guys are out of Fargo. WDAY TV.
Good evening, everyone. Resort owners in northern Minnesota continue the waiting game with Mother Nature tonight. The ice fishing season on Upper Red Lake remains on ice until next week.
It is a tough financial blow for dozens of resorts on the lake, who by next week are close to a month behind schedule. WDAY News reporter Matt Henson joins us live. He talked with some of those resorts about the financial hit they're taking and why there is still optimism they can reel in some of that lost revenue. Matt.
Dan and Kirsten, Sheriff Jason Riggs met with the resort owners today for more than an hour. He said it was a really good meeting. It was decided at that meeting the ice will be reassessed on Monday, whether the lake can be reopened to vehicle traffic.
Lots of emotions going back and forth.
It's a 30 square mile ice flow that is moving back and forth that is causing those emotions for resorts on Upper Red Lake.
Normally, if our fish house is on the lake, you're getting $250 a night for rent on that house. Well, now we have it on shore, so we essentially rent it for $100 a night.
The week between Christmas and New Year's is usually the biggest money-making week of the year for the resorts. 10% of the annual revenue for the Westwind Resort is reeled in that week. Normally, they would have around 150 anglers right now. Today, there were 6. Revenue is behind 85%. It was also a tough holiday week at Greater Minnesota Rentals. They have room for 200. Over the weekend, they had 20.
We see the big picture, and you hate to attach a money dollar sign to people's lives.
Mark knows that well. He's also a volunteer firefighter and has responded to 6 of the 7 ice rescues.
We were probably leading towards a death.
The Beltrami County Sheriff said they need that ice flow to grow before the lake is reopened to vehicle traffic.
We need the wind to push it from the west to the east, and then we need to have it lock up and then that ice sheet grow more to the west.
The financial impact may be a tough catch now, but there is some optimism.
Where the bookings are coming in fast and furious.
For late season ice fishing, a time of year when there are usually some openings at the resorts.
It has not been fished. It's, they're just sitting down there relaxing right now. There's no pressure on them. So our access is going to be on fire once we get out there.
Sheriff Riggs said no tickets have been issued for driving on the ice. He said they have received a number of calls, but those people were authorized to be on the ice for a variety of reasons, including resorts checking on the ice conditions. Reporting live, Matt Henson, WDAY News.
All right, thank you, Matt. Matt Henson, I believe his name is Matt. Yeah, man. Thank you, dude. I love these. I love these small town broadcasts, like these television broadcasts. Some of the reporters look very, very seasoned. It looks like they've been there their whole life, and then some of them look like they just got out of high school. And they just pushed them on camera and just nervous. And I can't believe I'm doing. That's what a lot of it just cracks me up. These smaller local television channels, stations, news stations, local news. It's really something. It's like I get a kick out of watching them. So anyway, so a lot of terrible ice conditions. Hopefully, like I said earlier, we've got weather conditions that are getting colder, and I think things are going to start freezing up. I think El Nino is gone. I think me being able to get out smallmouth bass fishing out here on the Mississippi River or downstream a little ways near Red Wing, Minnesota, doing some walleye stuff in the winter, thanks to the warm water discharge of nuclear power plants, I don't think that that's going to be viable anymore, except, you know, maybe when we get to the end of winter. So I think that, you know, that all that great open water fishing I was doing is probably going to be going away. I might have, you always got to keep an eye on the long range forecast. If I get a day that is freezing, which is 32 degrees, just like, or above freezing, I don't want it to be below freezing. If it's 31, I won't go. If it's 32, I'll go, unless it's windy. Okay, so you can't have wind either. You can't. So I'm, 32. Okay, maybe 30 with no wind. You know what I'm saying. So around that, 30 degree mark, no wind, I will go and I'll fish for smallmouth, or I'll fish for walleyes, down near Red Wing, Minnesota. And but it's looking like that's not going to be as common of a thing anymore, unfortunately. So I am going to go into ice fishing mode once everything freezes up nice and solid. And one of the things that I always do, and I'm sure everybody that ice fishes does this. So you want to do this more once. Well, it's a technique, and it's ridiculous to even call it a technique, really. It's just you're observing. But what happens when you have a normal ice fishing winter, you can see these, people got their portable shelters out, but the wheelhouse shelters, the ones that are like they're RVs essentially, when those are out on a spot, that means that people have really decided, man, I'm going to set this big hunking thing down, lock it down, and set up camp here. They're confident that this is a great area. The fish are biting. When you see one of those set up, and then you see another one set up near it, and another one set up near it, these wheelhouses, that is some of the best information that you can receive, that there is a bite happening in that area of a lake. And with crappies in particular, they get very bunched up. And if you see a little city happening on a lake, on a frozen lake, you know that there's a bite happening there. And most likely it's a crappie bite. So I found, this is on Target Walleye, brought this to my attention. And this is, let me find the right video here. This is from the ice fishing teams. It's Ice Team Fishing is the YouTube channel, Ice Team Fishing. And it's a video, it's a great tip. I couldn't agree with this more. And so I wanted to show it because this is really one of the keys to, it's maybe it's a basic tip, but I think it's a super important tip. If you're new to ice fishing, you really want to listen to this tip. Even if you're not new to ice fishing, it's a great tip. And again, it's from Ice Team Fishing, their YouTube channel. Here we go.
What's good, everybody? This is Mike Rates here with Clam Outdoors. Say we're out here fishing basin crappies. One thing I want to talk about is crowd fishing. As you can see behind me here, we've got a pretty good school of fish. This is a community crappie spot here on a local lake. And I think the biggest thing that we forget to do is we come out and we see the crowd of people and we go right in there and instantly assume that we're going to start catching fish. Now, I'm not saying there's not going to be fish in that area, but those fish have been caught, they've been kept. They've seen a lot of things in the past couple months as these people are sitting down on them. One thing I do when I come out to these lakes, I utilize the crowds. And what I actually do is I work on the outer edge. If you notice, I'm quite a distance away from them, and that's actually where we found these crappies. What these crappies will tend to do is when they get a lot of pressure in an area, they're gonna push off. Those smaller fish are gonna definitely sit inside, but those bigger fish are gonna start roaming the edges. And that's when I come out and I will drill around those areas. Staying high in the water column too is a really big thing, because what you're doing is you're kind of fishing those rogue crappies, but you're also fishing for those bigger fish. So staying high in the water column is gonna help call them in. So the next time you go out to a lake, come up to the crowd. Don't go in the crowd, but get on the outer edges of those crowds and drill around them. I guarantee you that at some point in drilling, you're going to find the school that you're looking for, and you're going to be able to catch a lot of fish.
All right, good information there. And I just thought that, instead of just having just an onslaught of terrible news about crappy ice conditions, I'd try to instill some information in this podcast that might be able to improve your ice fishing. So that's great information. And while that video was playing, I actually ran and got some of the lures that I plan on shooting some underwater with. So let me show you some of these goodies because I'm really excited to see how these things work. And so it's all Acme. I went to Runnings, which if you're not familiar with Runnings, it's I think it's based out of the Dakotas, maybe North Dakota, but it's a great sporting goods store. It's particularly for fishing. And the guy who's managing it, the one near me, just gets some great stuff in there. It's multi-species. If you're a multi-species guy, there's everything in there from like muskie all the way down to like little panfish, ice fishing stuff. What I'm going to, that video, they're primarily talking about, crappie, but it pertains to I think just any species. When there's that much pressure, it's good to kind of get away from the crowds. But initially, especially the soonest you can see like a little city developing on a lake, for ice fishing, get out there as quick as you can, because the longer that city is there, the more there's going to be likely there's more going to be more pressure on those fish, but those crappie in particular really get bunched up. So the minute you see one of those cities out there developing, get out there as soon as you can, but also just great advice to move away a little bit too and test out outside of that perimeter and see what's kind of going on too, that you might be able to catch some less pressured fish that way. But speaking of crappie stuff, this is one of these Acme Tackle lures that I picked up at Runnings. Basically what I did is I was walking around and just looking for just unique looking baits, stuff that I've never seen, any underwater done of, but baits that look like they have really a unique action. And so I picked up for crappies, or you can also, bluegill, any panfish really, these Acme Hyper T tungsten jigs, and they've got like a wings on them. So it's just imagine just a regular tungsten jig, but it's got wings. So that's gonna kind of make it look like or behave like a jigging wrap, that style of bait. And so I got different sizes of those. I've got, I have 1s, 2s, and 3 sizes, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so small one, medium size, big. And then as far as the other jigging kind of lure, so I'm going to try to do 2 videos this week. One of the videos is going to feature their jigging, these kind of wild Acme jigging lures, right? So this one here is called the Jackknife. It's got a rattling Google eye, so the eyes rattle. Okay, there's a rattle in the eyes. And then it's called the Acme Jackknife. It's a jig head, right? But it's designed for dead sticking. And it's got a swing hook design that I find very interesting. So it says the Jackknife features a hook that freely swings, giving the bait maximum action. So I'm thinking that that's going to, and the other thing too that's interesting about this is that it's got 2 hooks. It's got your main hook, and then it's got a little smaller hook going off the side of it. And I don't know how that, what's the point of that? But I think the idea with this particular jig is that it's designed for dead sticking. So maybe you kind of thread a minnow, or you hook it through the lips. It looks like you want to thread the minnow though. So the idea, I guess, is that the minnow would be alive. You keep it alive somehow, and that swing hook design is making that minnow kind of, it's giving that minnow more action is what I think is going on here. So yeah, so that's an Acme jackknife, and then going to be testing out the Acme Hyper T tungsten jig, which on this it's saying it's got a soft rubber wings create gliding action. See if there's anything more there. Tungsten jig with soft rubber wings, gliding and darting action with every rod twitch. So I'm excited to see the action of those. So that's one video. It's going to be jigging. And then the other video, I'm thinking we're going to just do these more Rapala, glide. I guess people call them glide baits. That means something different in musky fishing. It's so funny how there's different terms in different sectors of fishing. Fishing is so segmented, right? So musky guys will call glide baits something completely different than what walleye guys call glide baits. So let's call these vertical jigged. I'm just going to use the term jigging wrap style baits. Okay, so this is a Acme Hyper Glide, and it's a vertically fished lure. It's designed like, it looks like the same kind of design. It's got a wing on it, like a tail wing, if you will, like a Rapala jigging wrap. So this is very unique though, because it's got wings that flap up when that bait is sinking back down. So let me just give you a little rundown here, the description. Lifelike gill action from wings is irresistible to game fish. Wing action creates a sonar attraction fish can't resist. Wow. Unparalleled jigging action glides through the water effortlessly. V-drop system allows for vertical drop to get back on fish quickly. V-drop system. So I'm not familiar with the V-drop system or anything like that. So UV enhanced paint, unique wings. Yeah, this thing looks really, really cool. Color looks amazing. It's called Glow Perch. Excited to test these out. And then this is a really wild jigging wrap style bait. It's called the Acme Hyper Hammer TT. Lifelike action. And this thing it's got a 360-degree tunable soft silicone tail. So imagine jigging wrap style baits, that tail that gives that bait that really unique, erratic fall. This one is tunable. So this bait, you can tune that. And also, gosh, the writing is so small on this. Hyper-realistic paint finishes. I'm also approaching, and I'm getting older. Let's just put it that way, so it's harder to read small print. But it's got, if I can read this, I'm going to give it a real college try here. Like I said, the 360-degree tunable tail, brass hammer body construction, free-sliding brass hammer through the middle of the body creates fish-calling vibration. Patented soft silicone tail is 360-degree tunable. Extremely durable soft silicone tail construction. Yeah, so the tail is soft silicone, which is wild. Patented glass rattle eye provides high-frequency sonic vibrations. So that is what I'm going to be testing this week. If all works the way I want it to work and I'm able to clean that dirty aquarium, I'm a little concerned about how long it's going to take me, but I'm going to give it my best shot to get 2 underwater videos out the door this week. So that is my plan there. There was one, so getting close to wrapping up here, but speaking of cool lures, there is a social media account that you really, really need to check out. And I just want to make sure that I'm getting everything covered here. Yeah, so if you're not familiar with 6 Sense Fishing, 6 Sense Fishing is a relatively new bait company. I don't know where they're based out of, but it's just like every single lure that they're coming out with is innovative. It's like very, lots of attention to detail. Their Panorama, I did a video about the 6 Sense Panorama, which is, you can use it as a jerkbait. It's not a swim bait. I think some people are thinking that Panorama, if you haven't seen it, it's like it's a very realistic, it looks exactly like a gizzard shad. So the gizzard shad color of this, it looks like a gizzard shad. It's like one of the most realistic soft baits I think I've ever seen in my life. But some people have gotten the impression that it's a swim bait. And it is not, in my experience with it, it is not a swim bait. If you just do a retrieve, that thing is not going to have any action. A straight retrieve, the tail isn't going to waddle back and forth. What that particular Panorama is a ultra realistic bait that you can rig, Texas rig, fish it like a worm. You can drop shot the smaller versions of it. Think of it as like you're just trying to really match, the hatch, so to speak, with realism. That's where that bait's really going to shine, but it's also going to shine because it's flat. It's super thin. And so it really undulates through the water, but it doesn't undulate on a straight retrieve. It undulates jigged, but if you're just reeling it in, it doesn't have a swimming action. As a soft jerkbait, if you're just, Texas rigging it, you got to really work that thing hard to be an effective jerkbait. You got to reel it really quickly and then kill it, and it's a really cool action. And when you kill it, that realism is going to shine for you because it's just, you kill it, that thing, especially that more realistic, gizzard shad color or something similar to it, a bait fish color, instead of their more kind of gaudy colors. That thing, I think, is just going to be an amazing soft jerkbait. It's going to trigger fish that might not trigger on other soft jerkbaits. But so baits like that Panorama, and they're just constantly coming up with innovative lures. So just to give you an example, and this is just, you should follow them on social media, in particular on Instagram, which is where I've really gotten fond of Instagram just for kind of keeping tabs on what's going on in the fishing industry, following different, fishing manufacturers, following their accounts. And this is definitely one that you want to follow if you want to know like new stuff that's coming down the pike that's really, really innovative. And that's 6 Sense Fishing. Follow their Instagram. They've got such great stuff. If you're like just a lure nerd, you just like, I think most fishermen are. And again, this is more on the bass side of things, but their stuff is really, really great. So an example of that is their treble head design. This is just a really smart design for a swim bait head. And how it works is that it's a line through head, but what's different about it is sort of, I guess, different is that it's got a corkscrew that a screw lock basically, that you would then screw that soft bait into. And then that line through comes up, tie a treble hook, any treble hook, that you would want for that particular, swim bait that you're using. And then you put, you screw that soft, that swim bait, that plastic swim bait, soft swim bait, onto that screw head, and then that goes through that head, and and you tie off with a treble hook of your choosing. And that thing, it's just a great idea. It's crazy that no one's done that before. The head looks great. All of their lures are just, there's a ton of attention to detail on them. And here is their, this is called The Hangover. Ben Milliken, who's a YouTuber, line through swim bait. And you notice it's got a top hook design there. So that's just another thing that's really, really cool about it. Makes a lot of sense why, to have a top hook when you think of how these fish are taking it. Yeah, the hooks, so many of the hooks that we use, it's really weird that, the crankbaits, the hooks are on the bottom, and it's amazing that you don't hook fish more weird that way. And I've always thought it would make such better sense to somehow develop a crankbait that just has 2 single hooks on the back of it. I know some people have tried, some manufacturers have tried to do that. I think in the past, I don't know if very well, but it seems like that wouldn't be such a hard thing to make. Just 2 single hooks on a crankbait. But this Ben Milliken's Hangover line through swim bait, it's got the hook on the top. I like that, and it's got a pretty sexy wobble to it too. I'll show you a video here of it. This is from their Instagram account, this video. So yeah, it's got quite a waddle, and you can see that top hook design. And I'm not sure. It looks like there's a hook. You can attach. There's an area hook to attach a treble hook on the bottom of it. But yeah, that's got a real nice shimmy to it. And again, that's that Hangover. But they've got so many great lures. Let me just give you a few others here. This is, let me make sure I'm not forgetting something yet. So that was the Hangover. This is their blade bait. And just look at their blade bait, how good that thing looks. 3 different areas, like a lot of blade baits, that you can attach the line, and to give a different action. Crazy attention to detail on all of their stuff. Just really, really great lures. I'm just so impressed just in general with how great lures look nowadays. And so 6th Sense is just one of those companies that are just doing it right and just making some really great stuff. And so not only with hard baits, but also with soft baits. This is an example. Really cool design. I love tubes. This is called their Craw Tube. It's a 3-inch, this one, and that would be just a great smallmouth lure. I mean, I am totally, I'm a Berkeley power bait guy, but I like that they've got this tube design that looks like a crayfish. There's some stylistic, artistic stuff. Of course you want that in your lures. You don't want it to just. It doesn't always have to be just so super realistic. But I like the design of these Craw Tubes. I would say just like in general though, 6th Sense just has really cool lures. You're just gonna feel confident fishing them. You're gonna at least feel cool fishing them. And yeah, so in their last one, and they're always like kind of teasing new baits coming out, and they tease their stuff really, really well and gets you excited. They did that with a panorama for me. They showed a smaller panorama on like a drop shot rig and just this thing undulating. And it really got me all wound up about that panorama, so I had to go out and get some. So that's kind of what's happening with this new lure that's about to be released. I'm guessing it's like I don't know if it's a worm that they're just swimming in the middle of the water column or what's going on here. If it's just a curly tail like swim bait, it's very, very interesting. It says court is almost in session, and there's only one judge. So this video, if you're just it's a teaser video, and if you're just listening to the podcast, it's the camera's behind this bait, and you're right, it's a curl tail just kind of seductively wagging back and forth. And this bait looks Texas rigged, but you don't really know much more than that. So it says court is almost in session, and there's only one judge. So I don't know. It's they're a fun company though. They're really fun. Their marketing's great, and they get you hyped up for new lures coming out. So there's going to be. This is a great time to be a fisherman. I've said this many times before. This is the golden age of fishing in many ways. Amazing lures, amazing attention to detail, amazing hooks, amazing line, amazing boats, amazing electronics. Super, super lucky to be an angler nowadays. And I'm just, I love just following social media. It's just a great way to keep tabs on your favorite, lure makers and see what they're up to. And then also the beauty of it, social media, is that you can have these smaller bait makers, lure makers, also start up their businesses and sell their stuff online through Instagram or wherever, and they don't even really have to do much more than that to I think do well because of social media and just as far as the reach that you can get. And so you can find out about these smaller manufacturers and some of the cool stuff that they're putting out there that could be the next big thing, could be the next chatterbait, who knows? But it's just fun. If you're a lure nerd like most fishermen, it is social media. Yeah, are there bad things about social media? Sure. But there's a lot of great stuff about social media, and one of the great things about it is, number one, getting you in contact with like-minded people, and then also just finding lures, really unique lures that you would never have been able to find, without just combing through all the different accounts. And there's all kinds of Japanese accounts with cool lures. It's just really, really fun to go exploring. So I enjoy doing that on Instagram, and I just want to share with you guys that, Sixth Sense Fishing, their Instagram is really, really great, and I can't recommend it enough. Really, really cool company with a lot of great lures coming out. So that is, we're about wrapped up here, but let me just tell you how are we? Yeah, I think that's everything. I think we're good. I've gotten everything covered with Sixth Sense. Yes. So, I think we're ready to wrap up this. What podcast? I think we're on 47. 47. We're getting close to 50. Once we get to 50, we're going to have a big party. I'm going to try to get Pete back on, my greatest fishing buddy ever. And that's really saying something because I've had great fishing buddies. But Pete Wagner, co-host of Another Fishing Podcast, co-host of another fishing show, and co-host of Another Fishing Podcast. We got to get him back. I think once we get him back for that 50th episode of Another Fishing Podcast, he's going to be locked in and he's going to want to do this more. So I'm excited about it. This is going to be a great year. We're in 2024. If you're just listening to this podcast, I want you to know that you can also find this podcast. You can watch the video on our YouTube channel. Go to Angling Uploaded. That's our YouTube. Go to that and you'll go to the Another Fishing Podcast playlist, and you can find all the Another Fishing Podcast episodes on there. Also, Instagram. We do a lot of stuff on Instagram, so check out Angling Uploaded on Instagram. And then Another Fishing Podcast. If you're watching the video, you can find the podcast to listen to on all of the podcast apps out there, all the major podcasting apps. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I hope your 2024 is starting off awesome. And if you're an ice fisherman, let's freeze these lakes up. Let's go.